Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the sixth session of the Organic Home Gardening webinar series. And today we'll be discussing about simple organic inputs and specifically about biochar. So this webinar series is following the webinar series that we had last year. However, for this one, you will receive a valuable e-certificate. And the e-certificate there'll be three types. There's a certificate of participation, certificate of merit, and certificate of distinction. The certificate of merit will be given to participants who take part in all the webinars and complete some of the assessments, while the certificate of distinction will be given to participants who take part in all the webinars and complete all the assessments that are given. So today our resource person is Mr. Asanka Abekon, who is the manager of research and development here at Dilma Tea. And he'll be walking us through what biochar is and how it helps the soil and the environment. So without further ado, Mr. Asanka, you can start the webinar.
Okay, thank you very much. And Aibon, ladies and gentlemen, if you can scroll through the presentation, I can start straight away. Next one. I think you have covered this. You have covered that as well. Okay, let me start. Importance of being nature friendly in agriculture. That's the main theme. And today we are going to talk about the application of biochar in our own home gardens. Next. Okay, what is biochar? Well, this biochar, let me give you a brief scientific explanation. It's scientifically called you burn a combustible material with zero oxygen conditions, and then you make biochar. Basically, it's very difficult to burn anything without oxygen according to the science knowledge that we know, but it can be done. Well, this entire process is called pyrolysis, and the closest relative to biochar that we use on our day-to-day processes is activated carbon. You know, activated carbon is used for purification of water and then various extraction of toxins and so on and so forth. So the same or almost similar properties are there in biochar as well, but we used for various other purposes other than extracting and trapping inside. I will explain you more as the presentation goes on. This is not a new technology. That's what I must begin the entire presentation on, because we have been using biochar for thousands and thousands of years. And the closest engagement that we Sri Lankans have, go to the previous slide, we Sri Lankans have is chaina cultivation. Why our chaina cultivation is so successful during the yesteryear was because of biochar. We knowingly or unknowingly make biochar and use them in our soils to grow various vegetables and various other crops. So we use this technology in agriculture, and today we are going to touch base on the first point, that is usage of agriculture, and then this substance is used as a global warming mitigating factor, which means I will explain you when we come to the production of biochar. It traps carbon and then basically hold it on to hundreds of years, which means we don't have any carbon emission through this entire process. So it is called as global warming mitigating factor. And then it's used as an alternate for fossil fuel. I mean, closest example I can take is coconut shell charcoal. And then there's another thing that emits called syngas, which is being used for furnaces and various other applications for generating power. So this acts as a substance for fossil fuel as well. Next one. Okay. Some people believe that Amazon forest is the starting of Amazon forest is biochar, and it's a story that people. I mean, like I'm not saying it's a myth, but you get a rich terrapita mixed with organic material that acts as a growth agent for most of the trees. So that's why the Amazon forest is so lush, and the trees are growing much faster in anywhere else in the world. And plus, of course, you get humidity and all that. So people believe that this is the first biochar production plant in the world. This has, I mean, like, over a period of time, the soils are regenerating on its own with the use of various other organic compounds in that particular soil in Amazon forest. Next one. Okay, now let's get into the making of biochar. Usually in Sri Lanka, the most common material that we use to make biochar is glycidia. And then we at Dilma, we use our tea waste to generate biochar. And then paddy husk is also very, very common material that is being used for making of biochar. You may know something called karadahaya. That means half-burnt paddy husks. Which works very well with especially legumes and various other crops. That is also a kind of a biochar that I will explain later how you make karadahaya or paddy husk biochar. And then you can use coconut husk, paddy straw, and then other materials, material, corn straw, wood shaving, cow dung, dried cow dung, forest looping, sawdust, dried cattle bones. But I must tell you one thing: this is used. All the only combustible materials can be used for this. Maybe wood chips or any other materials that I have explained. But for the best biochar, if you can use a uniform material. I mean, like if it is only tea waste, it's only tea waste. Glycidia, it's only glycidia. Paddy husk, only paddy husk. Then only you get a quality output. If you use tea waste, glycidia, and paddy husk together, there's a tendency of you making ash in the process. Ash is not ash will get clogged into the thousands of porousers within the biochar, and then the qualitative factor will go down, so that biochar, you have to use a lot more biochar than what it should be. So basically, if you can make, like under the circumstances, sometimes you don't get uniform material, so especially waste material and things like that, then you are bound to use composition of mixed material. But if you can use a single material, it's best that you use single material to make biochar. Next one. Okay, I'll briefly tell you about our journey, our biochar journey. At Dilma, we started in 2010, and then probably we are still engaged in putting biochar into our soils, and but up to about 2008, 8 years, we did a proper scientific study to come up with formulas and then charging material and how to do it best. Next one. Okay, basically, I will, at the next few slides, I will tell you how to make biochar in your home garden or in a very easy manner. But at Dilma, we used one of our plantation companies to help us with the applications, and especially we focused on tea. So as you know, tea is a very rough and a tough plant, and it's actually a tree. So the root systems are much more robust, and then it's slow reacting. So we have to do quite a lot of changes in our biochar applications to show results. Actually, in the end, we came up with a formula. We used 300 grams of biochar per tea bush. And as you know, you per hectare, I think you get about 12,000 bushes. So the number of tonnage probably what we use, and because of the expenses, we put about in the end, we were putting about 3 tons a hectare for of biochar in trenches. We used to cut trenches, and you see the second layer, you see trenches, and then we mix up. We charge initially, the biochar has to be charged. In another slide, I will show you how you charge it. We used to charge it with organic material, maybe Jivamurta, or you can use fish waste, fish tonic, or any other material. Some people are using inorganic, which means urea or whatever. I do not 100% agree with it, but if you don't have anything, might as well use something and put it. What it does is this biochar absorbs 3 times its body weight, any liquid. So it holds the liquid inside and then releases as and when the tree requires. So biochar works in few different ways. One is over a period of time, we have ruined our soils by very unsustainable agriculture practices. So maybe decades of unsustainable agriculture practices. And then we have our carbon in our soils is very low. So basically, we need to add more carbon into soil to increase the retention power. Otherwise, right now, our tea soils, they say we have 20% retention power, but I don't think we have even 5%. So most of the soils, as you know, you put some water or anything into the soil, it just either it gets washed off, it just goes beyond your root system immediately, so that the roots don't get enough nourishment of what the inputs that you give the plant. So what this does is it absorbs as a sponge and provides nourishment to the plant as and when you require. So the other thing is one of the main areas of this biochar is it increases the microbial activity in soil. So we don't need to give, I mean, like, you know, the main input today is nitrogen, or you call it urea or whatever. But as you know, 79% of the air is nitrogen. So basically, most microbes does is it absorbs nitrogen and allow it to, it decays a lot of things and allows it to, allows the tree to absorb it on its own. So this is a win-win situation for a planter or grower, because your inputs, biochar, increases your microbial activity in soil, so that it acts as a regenerating, soil regenerating substance as well. Next one. Next slide. Okay, so these are the areas that we have applied. The 2-hectare block we have applied initially at one of our estates, called Rilhane Estate. If you see the two pictures on your left, before and after biochar application, you see a lush greener leaf, which means you can see that the chlorophyll content of the leaf has increased tremendously, which means that photosynthesis is much more efficient in the right leaf than the left leaf. So basically what happens is you produce more food, means more crop. It's very simple arithmetic, not rocket science. You increase the soil capacities, and then it reflects in the tree above the soil. Very this is we saw this change within about, after 3 months it started changing, and this is about after 6 months. And we after halving the inputs, which means if you are putting, we'll say 1 kilo of fertilizer for every 3 months, we have put only 1.5 kilos, and we increase our yield by 50%. So that's the level of success that we gain in this particular field. But fortunately or unfortunately, we didn't get the same results elsewhere, because this was closely monitored by us and Dilma Conservation, and then basically then we allowed the estate management to do elsewhere. And then what happened was they would have cut corners here and there, so the yield were not 50%, but they were saying that they got 25% increase, but it was a massive leap. Next one. Okay, so now let's come to our story is over. Now let's start your story. Now this is we started our biochar production at local levels. Our farm, it's situated at Moratua, at the K zone. So basically, then we started applying on vegetables, and according to my experience, the vegetables react much faster than tea. So I think it's very good if you can, even at a very lower level, if you can produce biochar and apply in your home garden. I do it on a daily basis at home. My garden is decently looking good, better than any other garden. So I think you all should do the same thing. Next one. Okay, so what we are doing is, I mean, like, you know, if you want to grow a tree, then basically you need to look after your soils. That's no, there's no point arguing on that. Otherwise, don't get into agriculture. So basically, what this biochar does to soil is it captures carbon. What it does is, now initially I said combustible material. Okay, we'll say glyceria. If you don't make biochar, what it happens is it goes into a dump and it starts decaying. While decaying, it emits methane and various other gases. So basically, methane is not an atmospheric friendly gas. So basically, if you can capture all that and keep as a biochar or carbon, then it helps the atmosphere in a big way. So this acts as a carbon capture. Then, as I said, it reduces the gas emissions, and then reduces soil emissions and carbon negative energy, and reduces odor. Basically, as you know, when things are decaying, you get odor. So when you make biochar, it captures everything within, and then it makes usually we say it's one lifetime, which means 100 years, but usually biochar can last over 300 years. Some people say it's thousands of years, but I would like to say one lifetime and finish it there. So you make biochar, put it in the soil. If you put the correct amount of biochar required for that particular tree or plantation, then you don't need to put anything again and again. All you need to do is to put the required charge the biochar again and again. So that once the tree takes it out, you need to charge it before the next crop cycle. That's all. And probably that would be that would be about 25% of your fertilizer inputs once the soil comes to equilibrium. Soil benefits: increases soil carbon, it improves soil fertility, it improves soil health, decreases nutrient runoff. So as I mentioned earlier, these are the things that happens in most of our gardens. So if you can stop all that, we'll have a very, we used to call it breathing soils. Soils are lush with various microbes, and they help us, and then in return they give us, we feed them with various other material that they love to feed, and in return they give us our trees get enough and more nutrients to grow. Next one. Excellent. Okay. So now making biochar. This can be done in a very, very simple way. The most simple way that you can do is dig a pit, a very sizable pit, and then, as you see on number 2, put some combustible material, maybe pigs, maybe wood, everything, and set fire to it. And once it starts, and first you put a little bit, and you keep on topping up. Then once you come up to a level where everything is burning very well, then you cover with a tin sheet, or worst case scenario, you can cover with the soil that is outside, but it's best that you leave a little bit of room for it to, okay, no problem, leave it like that. So room, air for it to burn on its own. Then once the oxygen with, inside that cavity is over, it automatically becomes biochar. So basically put some earth on top and cover it. Just keep going. Okay. Okay, light fire. Right, keep adding more material. Good. That's material. Cover with metal sheet, or if you can't find side, just put soil over, but best is to cover with metal. Okay, next slide. And then you must wait for a day, at least 24 hours, let it cool down on its own. But because if you open it up when it is hot, what happens is it becomes ash, because the moment the atmospheric oxygen goes in, it starts the fire back again, and then it becomes ash. You can't use it. So wait for about 24 hours, and then you take the char out and then use it. And in the meantime, you can do the same thing with various canisters and various barrels. And I have given some material links for you to go to the websites, and then it gives you not one, about 10, 20, 30 ways of you can make biochar at home. Right, okay, go ahead. So the other thing is when it's about to get ash, then you put water and then you make biochar. That is also another way of doing things. Okay, next one. Okay, the other thing is now once you make biochar, you can use any way to make biochar. Don't worry, make mistakes. You can make only charcoal, only ash, but I don't advise you to put ash because it messes up your soil pH levels. So basically, try and put charcoal is okay even if you don't make proper biochar. Anguru or charcoal is also okay up to a certain extent, but if you can make biochar, those are the most effective substance that you can put into your soil. So biochar has to be charged. You must not put it into soil without charging it. Why I'm telling you is now, I said the closest relative to biochar is activated carbon. Activated carbon is used to trap all the impurities. So basically, if you put some dirty water into biochar, then dirt gets absorbed into activated carbon. Same thing, biochar, activated carbon, it's same. It made the same way. So it absorbs all the impurities and then give us good water for us to consume. Similar way, all the biochar, it has a tendency of absorbing all this nourishment and everything into biochar very quickly. So what happens is if you use biochar without charging, without saturating it with all these things, once you put it to soil, it absorbs the nutrients in soil and tries to come to equilibrium. On the longer run, the trees won't have enough nutrients to grow. So sometimes if you put biochar neat, then what happens is the tree become pale or yellow or the various things can happen. So might as well charge it at least 2 days. We used to charge 2 days, but if you have time, even a month, much better. So basically you can use Jivamurta, you can use any other organic liquid, maybe fish tonic, anything. You put it in. If you don't have anything, just put water. But one thing you must not do is use tap water reduce the use of tap water in day-to-day. It's very difficult for us to do, but unfortunately tap water has heavy chlorine content, which kills most of the microbians. And even if it doesn't kill, most microbians become very dormant in chlorine environment. So it doesn't act the way we want them to act and give give enough food for our plants. So basically use well water, or the best is rainwater for this particular purpose, and then mix something and close it in a barrel or bucket and keep it for a day, 2 or week, and then mix it with soil. If you if you're using a potting mix, put maybe 1/3 to the potting mix and mix it well, and use in your pots or ground or wherever, and then plant your material. So you see the next one, without biochar, the taproot goes way down to seek water and various nutrients. But biochar, if the biochar is there, all the roots stay within a close proximity and get hold of biochar, get into biochar and absorbs whatever inside. So that's why you get a very, very structured root system on your right hand side. That's the one. But one thing you must realize is if your plant is growing tall, you must not put biochar in the vicinity. So you must always dig a little deeper. And what we do is our root system, the tea root system is about maybe 2 feet deep. So we try to put things somewhere around 2 feet, not very, because what happens is if the nutrients are available in and around the tree, then the root system doesn't grow very deep. So then in the event of a cyclone or something like that, the tree, there's a tendency of tree falling down. So you always must put biochar a little deeper, so that root system will go deeper and get hold of biochar and take the nutrients in. Next one. Okay, this is the way we made at Wilhelm. We took a barrel and then put glycidia. And, you see the last bit. I mean, we fired from the bottom and we kept on putting glycidia. And once it comes to this level, we used to close the lid and then wait for 24 hours and then take it out. Is there any? Okay, sorry about. Now only I heard that I need to talk a little louder. Sorry about it. But if you go through these sites and YouTube links, you will see not only this. There are hundreds of YouTube videos how to make biochar at home. There are other methods that can make biochar, good biochar, but I'm not talking about them because those are little expensive to make. Those apparatus are expensive. So there's another method, barrel in barrel, that also works very well. But only thing, first time or second time, you might not be able to make quality biochar in some other methods. So I have not described those, but those pit method and the other methods that I have said, from the word go, you can make fairly decent biochar and use in your agriculture. And I can assure you that over a period of 1 year, you will have minimum 50% more growth, even 100%. If you use biochar, and your soils has to become very fertile. So what happens is our soils are not that great. So we need to put more and more artificial chemical or other inputs every time that we plant a new tree. But if the soils are good, we don't need that much of inputs. You can easily have a very good growing plants in your garden. Next one. I think one more slide. Okay. So basically, question and answers, whatever you want to ask, you may ask.
Thank you, Asanka, for that very insightful presentation. If anyone has any questions, you can drop them in the Q&A tab, a section on Zoom.
So everybody understood everything perfectly, so I don't think there are questions.
There is one question.
Yeah.
Here, so Sandy is asking, here our soil is 100% sand, then making a pit is a bit difficult to make biochar. Any recommendations you can give?
Say that again, our soil is?
Our soil is 100% sand, then making a pit is a bit difficult to make biochar. Any recommendation?
Yes, I agree up to a certain extent, but if you can reinforce the edges and then probably bury a pit, kind of like a broken barrel or something like that, and then make it a artificial hole and then do it, then it's easy. But if it is 100% sand, you can't make a proper pit for it to for us to put twigs and everything and make a fire. So basically, I think you will have to make a barrel method. You have to make biochar using a barrel or some other technique if you really can't dig a hole.
Thank you. There's another question. With microbial inoculation, what does that mean?
Sorry?
What does microbial inoculation mean?
Okay, microbial inoculation is basically now when you make biochar, it's a inert material, which means anguru or charcoal. It doesn't react with anything. It's pure carbon. So with millions of tiny holes in it. So inoculation means you just make sure that it absorbs everything and then get into the biochar. And what happens is now this most of the liquid that we put are organic liquid. As you know, we put most of the organic liquids are microbes. Microbes means tiny living beings, and they do things that we sometimes don't understand. There are good guys as well as bad guys, so we try to harbor more good guys, and these liquids are put in there. So what happens is that entire biochar becomes a colony of microbial activity. The moment you put it in soil, it goes in and basically the organic material will be decayed and available for the plants to absorb. So that what you're doing that and the entire process is called inoculation of microbial activity. Not too sure whether I have answered the question.
I think you answered the question. Paba, do you have any follow-up questions to that? She has also asked how it changes soil pH.
How?
I think how biochar changes soil pH.
Okay. One thing I must tell you, that is something that I also couldn't understand how it happens, but most of our soils are acidic. Now, our tea soils are somewhere at 3-4 level, where the normal, the baseline is, line is 7, you know. When you get onto one side, it's acidic, other side is base. So basically, you need to come closer to this line. And having said that, tea requires slightly tea requires slightly acidic soil, but not very acidic. So basically, what happens is something happens when biochar is put. It tries to get into this closer towards the normal line. So which means soils start regenerating. I personally think it's due to microbial activity that is available in the biochar that we put. That acts as a catalyst to bring the acidic soil towards the normal.
Thank you, Asanka. I think that's all the questions we have for today. We have come to the end of today's session, and before we wind up, there are a few announcements to make. All participants who have registered will receive a feedback form one day after the webinar session. Please be sure to fill and submit the form. I would like to thank Asanka for your valuable time and for sharing some amazing information with us today.
There's one more question. They asked, somebody has asked, Sandrine, does that mean that an alkaline soil we should not add biochar? But what I must tell you is various plants have various requirements. So you need to know, but alkaline soils, most of our soils are acidic. I don't know about other countries, but in Sri Lankan soils, most of the soils that I have seen acidic. So we need to get towards this one. But biochar is biochar acts as a neutral neutral substance where it brings everything to the to acceptable levels to trees, and that's the reason why Amazon forest is growing this well.
Thank you, Asanka. So the next webinar will be on pest control and disease management, and it's scheduled for the 10th of May. We hope to see all of you there. With that, it's time to end the webinar for the day. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you.